Hear that? Welcome back to another episode of Dugout Talk. A very special Dugout Talk today. Today we're going to be talking about man, I love talking about this team. I love talking about the Houston Astros, man. I don't know. It's just something about bats and trash cans. Anytime I hear the Astros name get called up, there's no reason for it, obviously. But I just love it. Um, Today is episode 29. It's also Thursday, February 25th, 2021. Um, it sucked putting this PowerPoint together. Having to unfortunately look up all this Astro stuff on my computer. I think I may have gotten a virus or two. I wouldn't be surprised if they start stealing like my mail from me or something like that.
Oh no.
With a history, obviously, there's a history there. But jokes aside, we do have some baseball history to cover today. This baseball history isn't Astros related, unfortunately, but it is very important in terms of baseball and where it's at today. So, obviously, in 2015, Game 2 of the 2015 NLDS, to be specific, it was a bizarre play, bottom of the seventh inning. The Dodgers eventually won 5-2. Dodgers base runner Chase Utley upended Mets shortstop Ruben Tejada at second base in an effort to break up a potential double play. You can see Chase Utley's attempt to slide into the bag there on the right side of your screen. Some people, not many, have defended what Utley did, saying that it's just part of the game. Thankfully, today in 2016, 5 years ago already, MLB and the Players Union, the Players Association, agreed that slides on a potential double play will require runners to make a bona fide attempt to reach and remain on the base. Runners may initiate contact with the fielder as a consequence of an otherwise permissible slide. A runner will be specifically prohibited from changing his pathway to the base or utilizing a roadblock for the purpose of initiating contact with the fielder. Just my thoughts real quick on this situation that happened. I don't like it. I understand trying to break up a double play, but in my eyes, if a fielder is not, I mean, it's the same way with the home plate, the Buster Posey rule. You're only allowed to make contact if the catcher is impeding your process to the plate. If you absolutely cannot touch the plate without making contact, make contact. In this situation, I tried to go as close to a frame by frame situation as I could, and as you can see, Ruben Tejada, I won't name names, but someone in our group chat said that because Ruben Tejada turned his back to Chase Utley, that opened him up, and that gave Chase Utley permission to just plow into him, despite the fact that Tejada was to the right side of the base. In my eyes, Tejada was not impeding his process to the base. Tejada was by no means trying to get Utley out via tag. He was just going to try to step on the base and throw to first. Unfortunately, he was unable to do that because before he could step on the base, Chase Utley literally ended his career. Like Ruben Tejada hasn't. I'm not sure if Ruben Tejada has been on a major league roster since this injury, besides maybe the Mets the following season. I don't. Yeah, like I said, I feel the same way about this rule as I do the Buster Posey rule. Tejada wasn't in front of. It would be different if Tejada had caught the ball, but he was like a foot to the left, a little bit more. He was standing maybe right on top of the base or right behind it. Utley barrels into him. That's unfortunate. But the fact that Chase Utley slid, the only time you see a player slide like that is when the fielder is on the left side of the plate, and they're going to catch a ball and turn around and try to tag you. That's when you would slide on the right side of the base. You don't slide on the right side of the base with the fielder on that side of the base as well. What is your? I didn't really get to see your. We talked about it briefly in our group chat yesterday. I didn't really get to see your opinion on it.
Yeah. So, okay, I understand both sides of the argument, and for me, playing the game myself, I understand that these kinds of things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Base runners should be allowed to try and break up a double play,
Oh yeah.
but there is a line there where you, and in this case, if you watch the video, there are several videos. John Boy's done a breakdown of this even on MLB's YouTube page. Neither guy touched the base. Utley
Mm-hmm.
slid completely over the bag. Ruben Tejada never touched the base, even though he thought he did. And I think I'm not going to say this is a dirty play by any means because Utley is well within his right to break up this double play. But this was definitely unnecessary in my opinion. They wouldn't have gotten the double play to begin with for the first part. Second part, Utley didn't start his slide until he was almost equivalent to where second base was. And you can
Mm-hmm.
see in the slide, he's not even, he's nowhere near second. His hand, you can argue his hand is trying to touch the bag. So I guess in that term, technically, he is sliding for the base. But when you look at how late he started his tag and with where he's even like even in this top frame right here,
Mm-hmm.
going for Tejada. It's clear
Yeah.
as day. He is trying to take Tejada out to break the double play. Is he trying to injure him? I don't think so. I'm not going to say he is. And Utley has every right to play the game hard, but I respect that. Guys should play the game hard. They shouldn't, you know, they shouldn't be forced to play it lightly just so then someone doesn't get injured because injuries are going to happen. But you got to have good situational awareness here that if you're trying to break this double play up, you better at least make it look like you're going for the bag a lot better than what this was. Um, Now, the unfortunate thing about this too is this play got taken to replay. It got overturned, but the only reason it got overturned was because the Dodgers challenged that Tejada did not touch the bag, which he didn't. And even though Utley didn't touch the bag, it didn't matter because the Mets didn't challenge that. And why would they? Because he was called out. And
Mm-hmm.
technically, he was out because Utley abandoned his base and left the field of play. So he
Mm-hmm.
was out. Um, and I'm not going to go much further into that. But I think
Yeah.
my opinion on this is as unfortunate as this is, at the same time, it was unnecessary to go in that hard on Tejada. And the thing with Tejada, too, is he's defenseless at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He does have his back to Utley, so he has no idea. He has no idea where he is. Daniel Murphy did not make a good throw either from second base. His throw took Tejada to that side of the field. And so Tejada really has no choice. He has to go over to
Mm-hmm.
that part of the field anyway. I know the argument was made that Tejada was attempting a throw to first. I don't side with that very much because if you've ever played middle infield, if there is a play at second and a potential play at first, your instinct is to make the play at second and turn to
Mm-hmm.
first to see if you have a play.
Yep.
I don't think Tejada would have released the ball had he had time to react because they wouldn't have gotten the double play either way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as unfortunate as this is, I understand both sides. I understand that I don't think that Utley was doing this with intent to injure Tejada.
No.
I don't think this is dirty. It's just to me, this was very unnecessary considering the circumstances. Utley could have at least made a better attempt to at least slide into second instead
Mm-hmm.
of sliding way to the right and then put his hand out to make it look like he was at least attempting the slide. And even the commentators who were on this game, I believe it was Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling,
Mm-hmm.
they even made comment that Utley he started his slide way too late. Um, and we see guys do it all the time. Matt Holliday was notorious for being a hard slider, but the difference with Holliday was he would always reach the bag.
Mm-hmm.
He might start his slide late, but he would always at least make the attempt of he is going to get to the bag. He might take a fielder out, and we saw this in the 2012 NLCS. He took out Scutero, but he was sliding into the base, and no one
Mm-hmm.
really made beef with it, even though it was really hard contact because he was at least making an attempt to the base.
Yeah.
And Holliday wasn't a dirty player either. He was just very aggressive. Utley's a very aggressive was a very
Mm-hmm.
aggressive player. He's not dirty, just super aggressive. Um, and that's kind of more where my opinion sides with this. I don't so much have a problem with what happened. I have more of a problem with the fact that um, the roughness seemed a little unnecessary. And I think the rule needed to be implemented in this case to make it clear, make it more clear what base runners need to do, because this kind of was a gray area to begin with. It's kind of the same thing with blocking with catchers and home plate. Like the Buster Posey thing, obviously it was unfortunate what happened, but what was his name? Scott Cousins, I believe, was the base runner for the Marlins when he barreled over Posey. Posey was technically blocking the plate, and Cousins had no way to go except either barrel him over or try to run around him and reach the bag like Ichiro would do. But again, I don't have a problem with this rule. And I think even at the time, just because it was such a gray area, it's hard to really say that Utley was in the wrong here. Is just, to me, felt very unnecessary for him to be as aggressive as he was in that situation.
Yeah, Utley was a smart player. He always was. He was usually the smartest or the second smartest player on the field at any time. I guess what I should specify that my issue with it is that you can't go out of your way to reach the base that blatantly.
Right.
There is a gray area. Had Tejada been right on top of the bag or right beside it, that would make sense. But I mean, Tejada, as you can see, is probably a good foot behind and to the left of second base at that point. Maybe even 2 feet, 2.5 feet to the left, behind and to the left of the bag. I mean, Utley is by no means attempting to. He understands that he's going to be out on this play. Right. He understands that Tejada's foot is going to reach the bag before him. So his goal is to slide as late as possible, get as low as possible, and not injure, not hurt, maybe not even knock over, but really give Tejada a hard time of trying to get that ball to first base.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can argue that rules like this make the game soft, but I mean, there's so little contact in baseball that I just don't see these two rules. I mean, players still break up double plays all the time at second base. Players still barrel into other guys. It's just not quite as blatant as this.
And the thing too, Tejada's defenseless. Yeah. He's defenseless in this position, and it's like the rule in the NFL when you have a defenseless when a defender makes contact with a defenseless player, they get penalized for it. And this is similar here. Tejada has no way of bracing himself or protecting himself, and you have to protect the players in this case, because this right here is career ending, and for Tejada it proved to be a career ender. He was never the same player after that. He bounced around between, I believe it was the Cardinals and the Giants. He had some very brief stints, but other than that, he never really saw major league time again. So the rule does make it safer for middle infielders, but at the same time, it is baseball, and these things do happen. Yeah. And I don't think this makes it soft. I think this just makes it, the league understands they have to protect their guys. The guys have to be somewhat protected, especially in a situation like this, because if you have a defenseless infielder who has no way of bracing for impact, this is going to happen again. And when something like this happens, it has to be addressed, much like the Buster Posey rule.
Yeah, just looking at Ruben Tejada's career, he played 113 games in 2015. He played 83 games after that.
Yeah.
Most of which in 2016, 17, and 19. I know he spent a little bit of time in the Yankees AAA team, Scranton Wilkes-Barre, but I mean that, yeah, it proved to be a career ender. He was an everyday shortstop before that, and because of what you can easily call an unnecessary attempt to break up a double play, his career is over. He lost his career because of not Chase Utley is dirty, not as blatant or attempt to injure him type of slide, but you just gotta be smarter than that. You have to understand that Tejada's not in a position to make a play. He's not in a position to do much of anything except catch that ball. He's not supposed to. You could argue, yeah, sure, he shouldn't catch that, but if he doesn't catch it, Daniel Murphy's throwing that ball there, expecting Tejada to be there. Tejada doesn't go there. That ball's rolling towards the mound, and Utley's on his way to third. So
it's baseball.
Yeah, I think that's good enough to leave off there. Today we have the Houston Astros. We'll go over their 2020 season in review. They finished with a sub 500 record. They finished 29-31. It's good for second place in a relatively lackluster AL West last season. Dusty Baker was hired as their new manager after AJ Hinch was fired for his role. He was fired and suspended for his role in the Astros illegal cheating sign stealing system that they implemented from 2017, potentially all the way up to 2019, but that's for a different episode. Um, they lost in the American League Championship Series 4-3 to Tampa Bay. They lost two huge important players for most or all of the 2020 season, that being Justin Verlander, Yordan Alvarez, who suffered. Verlander, I believe, had Tommy John. Is
Yeah.
that what he ended up having? Tommy John.
Verlander had
And
Tommy John, and Alvarez had knee surgery on both knees.
both knees. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not good for a guy that's 23, 24. Um, and they had gigantic down years from Altuve, Gurriel, and Bregman, and to a lesser extent, Carlos Correa. I mean, Altuve and Bregman were so cold, it was almost like they were playing their home games in Anchorage instead of Houston. But well, that's an inside joke for our group chat.
Yeah, we're done joking with the Astros thing too.
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
you're not, but
yeah,
we had to poke a little fun at that.
yes. All right. Looking at a few of the offseason changes for the Astros, not a great offseason for them. They lost George Springer and Josh Reddick, two guys who not only have been starters for the past 4 or 5 years. Springer's been their leadoff hitter for, I believe, 5 straight seasons. Reddick's been manning right field for them. Springer's been manning center field. They were both on their World Series teams in 17 and 2019. And they didn't really, the only outfielder they acquired with any former major league service time was Steven Souza Jr., which from the sounds of it, they may actually give him quality at bats this season. Um, they lost Roberto Osuna, Chris Davinsky, and Brad Peacock, 3 important guys out of the bullpen. They were able to kind of replace them with Steve Cishek, Pedro Baez, and Ryan Stanek. Um, Cishek and Osuna are kind of the same type of late innings guy. Baez and Davinsky are both, relatively good, high leverage pitchers. And then Stanek and Peacock are both more long relief, can give you 2+ inning type of guys. They lost Dustin Garneau, who's been their backup for a couple years, and they brought back Jason Castro. So backup catcher, potentially a starting catcher, depending on how they feel about Maldonado, got replaced. But the real downside for them was losing those 2 crucial outfielders in Springer and Reddick.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. The Astros, that cheating scandal that came to light in 2019, and when the baseball world found out that they pretty much cheated their way to a World Series title. When you go through a scandal like that, and you make the changes from the top of the front office all the way down to manager, it's really difficult to bounce back and maintain that success. The fact that the Astros got to the ALCS last year, expanded playoffs, it's actually that's really the big reason why I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they had no business being there, in my opinion.
Exactly.
But they did play they played baseball when they needed to play. And they still had a good team last year, don't get me wrong. I think in a full season they would have had a winning record, probably would have competed for the wild card, maybe gotten another division title. But now is kind of a good time, I think, for the Astros to retool. They're not in a rebuild by any means. They have a really deep farm system that's going to help carry them for years to come. But losing Springer and Reddick is pretty big. But I think that they've really bolstered up the bullpen with some of these additions. By the way, Steve Cishek before last year never recorded an ERA above 3.6 in a regular season. So he's actually a really good addition for them. Pedro Baez has a winning record with the Dodgers. Ryan Stanek, he was with the Rays, did really well out there. Steven Souza Jr., he's been injury riddled for the last 3 years. When he plays and he's healthy, he's capable of being a 30 homer guy. Hits about 260, so he's a good addition to have in that outfield. And then Jason Castro, he's a good backup to have, and he's returning to his home roots. He broke in with the club back in 2010, and then had kind of bounced around for the last few years, but now he's back with the Astros. Um, I don't think that I still don't think they're a bad team, to be perfectly honest with you. I know the cheating scandal really taints anything they do at this point, but Dusty Baker is a good manager for them to have.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of, to me, he's like the right guy to right the ship in a lot of ways. Is he the skipper for the future? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. He got them one win away from World Series last year though, so maybe he is the guy to have at the helm for the near future. But this team is still one that's going to be a force to reckon with. They don't need to be busy this offseason because they got a lot of young talent that are coming up, and we're going to talk about that later. But they got a lot of guys coming through that are going to help contribute to the team, who are going to get more playing time this year. Um, so I think they're still in a good position, even though they haven't really been busy this offseason. They're still in a decent enough position to compete. In my eyes, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, they always find a way to be, at least in the discussion. And they've done that every year since, 2015. So I don't think they're going to be a bad team just because they have to play fair now. They're still going to be a great team. They have great players. As this lineup shows, still very star-studded. But it will be interesting to see how these new guys kind of mesh, how they, ebb and flow. It's going to be nice to have guys who aren't as connected to that scandal as the guys that they, are losing. Maybe some fresh faces will lighten the
Right.
mood a little bit there. Looking at my projected lineup for them, now that their, five-time leadoff hitter is gone, in Springer, I think Jose Altuve probably moves back. I believe Jose Altuve was their leadoff hitter before Springer, kind of took over that role. So I think Altuve is probably the best bet to take over the leadoff hitter duties. He's got the player type. He's fast. He can get on base. He walks a lot. Doesn't strike out much. He gets lots of hits. He can get 175 to 200 hits in his sleep. It seems like. And as of recently, he's been able to hit home runs more often. So he can almost, recreate the type of production that Springer's going to leave. Michael Brantley, I like as a number 2. He's going to hit for a 315, 320 average, probably get you 15 to 20 home runs, drive in 75, 80 RBI. So he's a great number 2, another guy that gets on base a lot. Alex Bregman's turned into a star. He's probably going to be close to an MVP candidate again this year. Carlos Correa, I have him in the number 4, playing shortstop. It'll be interesting to see Carlos Correa. I believe he's set to enter free agency this offseason. It'll be interesting to see if the Astros decide to lock him up, or if they're going to let, maybe offer him a qualifying offer and just let him, go get his big payday. But he's never really had a season worthy of, the kind of payday he's probably going to get. He's uber talented. But whether it be just some slight injuries, misses, 20, 30 games a year, he's a career average right around 265, 270, I believe. It'll be interesting to see if maybe this is his big, not to say breakout year, but where he can really transform into kind of upper echelon type of shortstop. I have Yordan Alvarez, the DH, batting 5th. I'm excited to see if he can, rebound from double knee surgery that he had. It's always a little bit of a threat to see a guy 23, 24 have surgery on both knees. But if everything went well, it sounds like he's going to start. I was listening to MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM last night. And they were talking about the Astros, and they said that someone who was an insider, I honestly forget his name, said that they could see Alvarez hasn't been practicing yet, but they could see him in games as early as, a week or 2 from now. So he should be set to make an opening day start. Yuli Gurriel, I have him at first base again. Kyle Tucker, the new right fielder. This is going to be his really his very first opportunity to play every day for a former top prospect. That's going to be crucial for him. I have a center fielder, Miles Straw, who I did not you could have showed me his face before last night. I would not have known who he was. But apparently he's one of the fastest players in baseball. Stole 70 bases a couple years ago in the minor leagues. So he takes over center field duties. I have Jason Castro as their opening day catcher. I know it's very likely that Martin Maldonado could have that duty. I think it might depend. There might be maybe Greinke or McCullers. Maybe McCullers wants a personal catcher, someone that he's played with before. Maybe that's Castro, so he gets a few starts a week. But I give the edge to Castro, the former Astro, as the opening day nod.
Yeah, the Astros have potential. I mean, Maldonado and Castro, it could even be based on pitcher matchup too, righty lefty.
Yep.
So my lineup, for the most part, is actually my lineup looks kind of different compared to yours. Miles Straw, he broke in with the team a few years ago, but he's never been an everyday guy for them. I think now that George Springer is out, this is a chance for him to be an everyday player. And you mentioned his speed. I think that's what's going to make him a premier leadoff guy. Is he can almost be like Eric Young Jr. in my opinion. So I've got him as the opening day center fielder leading off. Jose Altuve, I like him hitting second. There was a time early in his career when he was a primary leadoff man. I think he's more suited for a number 2 or number 3 spot in the lineup. I've got him batting second right now. Michael Brantley, the left fielder, I got him hitting third. He's a great contact hitter. He won't strike out a lot. He will move runners over. He'll get on base. He'll drive in runs. He'll hit for some power. Very well-balanced player right there. It's unfortunate the Blue Jays weren't able to get him, but I think this is a good addition. This is definitely a good re-addition for the Astros. I like him hitting third. Alex Bregman, I got him hitting cleanup. He has definitely added a lot more power to the bat over the years. I think he's a great spot as a cleanup hitter, maybe even a number 2. I was kind of debating whether to put him in the 2 or 4 spot. Yuli Gurriel at first base, I got him hitting 5th. Carlos Correa, the shortstop, I've got him hitting 6th. And you brought up a good point with him. He's never really put up a healthy season, even going back to the minor leagues. His call-up time got delayed a little bit because he had an ankle injury that ended his minor league season the year before he got called up. He's had some freak injuries too. He's a pretty fragile player. He will spend some time on the injured list, and for really bizarre reasons. I think the most bizarre injury I remember hearing from him, he fractured a rib getting a massage. If you want to add that to the weirdest list of injuries among athletes, that's one of them. I got him hitting 6th. I think he needs to prove that he can actually hit for consistency. And with power on top of that. Yordan Alvarez, I got him hitting 7th right now. I'm not sure what to expect out of Alvarez this year, considering he had knee surgery on both knees. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. I'm not sure how big of a contributor he's going to be. I hope he can be that AL rookie of the year that he was in 2019 again, but it's hard to really say what to expect, what to know is going to happen. Kyle Tucker, the right fielder, got him hitting 8th. He did get a lot of primary playing time last year, but in a 60-game season, not really. I guess technically it was a full season. He got a pretty good amount of games in, but this is his year to be the everyday guy. His brother Preston was actually with the Astros not long ago. Preston has kind of moved around the big leagues pretty regularly since he broke in, but Kyle, his younger brother, I think he's going to be the everyday guy out there for him. I'm expecting a big year from him. And I have Martin Maldonado as the catcher hitting 9th. Zach Greinke does prefer catcher, like a personal catcher. I think Maldonado is going to be the guy for him. I know when Greinke was in Arizona, Jeff Mathis was his guy. When he was in LA, AJ Ellis was his guy. So that's why I've got Maldonado in there. But again, I think the Astros wouldn't be wrong going with either Castro or Maldonado. I just think it's going to depend on what the pitching matchup is for that day.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Either way, both of those guys are great defensive catchers.
Exactly.
A little bit of pop, a little bit of batting average here and there, so they should be good either way.
Exactly.
Looking at some potential rotations for the Astros entering this season, we both have the same guys, almost the exact same setup. I like Zach Greinke to be the opening day guy. It's going to be interesting to see if he can kind of push off Father Time one more year. He's 37 or 38 at this point which is crazy to think. Like, it feels like his pre-Dodger days like just never happened. Like to think that he played for the Brewers and the Angels at one point, like that's crazy.
Right.
Um, Lance McCullers, I have him as the number two. Lance McCullers has never made more than 22 starts in a season. So it'll be interesting to see if he can, they're going to need, probably close to 25 starts from Lance McCullers this year. Um, I know that they have, multiple young guys who can probably fill in some roles, but they really need, Lance McCullers' curveball is one of the better ones in baseball. And it'll be really interesting to see if he can really kind of elevate to the next level in terms of starting capabilities. Framber Valdez, Jose Urquidy, and Christian Javier I have rounding out mine. And all three of those guys are very young. Um, I don't believe any of them have ever put up more than 150 innings in a season. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get close to 180 from at least two of those three guys. I think will be crucial. Looking at the rotation, it has the potential to be either their strong suit outside of their lineup, or their weakest link. If the young guys prove that maybe not worthy, not capable of going 100, 180, 190 innings, 28 to 30 starts a year. It'll be interesting to see where they can kind of get that production from.
Yeah, the rotation is going to be very crucial for them this year. Outside of Greinke and McCullers, actually, I'd even argue outside of Greinke, all
Mm-hmm.
four of these guys have a lot to prove because McCullers has been injury prone. Like you say, he's never made more than 22 starts in a season. So this is a big year for him, especially since he's probably going to be their number two guy. And then they have, and Zach Greinke, even with age, you got to wonder if he's going to be able to maintain that success. The thing that has kept Greinke successful is even though he's lost velocity, he's learned how to mix his pitches in.
Yep.
He's learned how to pitch with the lost velocity, which that kills guys. We've seen that with Felix Hernandez, where it just hasn't worked for him, but Greinke has made it work. Really, his only bad year was 2016, his first year in Arizona, and even then, he just had a poor start, but he was able to bounce back pretty nicely. So Greinke, McCullers, and then they're my one and two. But from there, I put Jose Urquidy as the number three because of these three guys, he is the most experienced. He is a little more consistent than the other two. Framber Valdez, he has potential, I think, and Kristen Javier, he broke into the majors last year, so this is going to be his first full season. And Javier has a pretty high ceiling himself. All three of these guys have high ceilings on them, but they have never pitched more than 70 innings in a year. So I'm curious to see how this works out for all of them.
Yeah.
I was looking at their inside numbers, though, before we got on, and these guys pitch more to contact than they do to get strikeouts. They're really good at keeping the ball on the ground. They don't, they're ground ball pitchers, which is nice to have. And I think that is going to be very helpful for these guys. But again, the fact that they're going to be pitching a full major league season, and they've never pitched more than 70 innings in a season up to this point, I'm curious to see how this works out for them. I think this is either going to be their strong suit or this is going to be a weak point for them. And this is going to be the deciding factor in kind of how their season goes, in my opinion. Because outside of these five guys, they don't really have anybody, even in their bullpen, they don't really have anybody that they could go to as an emergency starter. I guess Ryan Stanek would be the closest guy that they have. So the rotation has to step up for them if they're going to be a force in that AL West. Because the offense is good. I don't know if it's good enough to back them up every night though. So it's gonna be really important these guys record a good amount of innings and are able to actually record just decent outings overall.
Yeah, it'll be as I usually say, it'll be interesting to see how the rotation stacks up and which guys they can get valuable time out of. Looking at some potential Astros bullpens, it's going to look relatively different than you may have gotten used to with their 2017 to 2019 run. I think Ryan Presley is probably the favorite to take closer duties entering this year. They don't have a guy who's set to be a closer. It could be Presley. Baez has never really done it, and he's been in Los Angeles with the Dodgers during Kenley Jansen's whole run. So he's never really been a closer. Joe Smith has the potential. He's got that great sidearm delivery, as you can see there in the bottom left. Um, he's a guy that you could potentially get some save opportunities for. Even Steve Cishek, he's done it a little bit. I think he was a closer with Miami at one point.
in
So
Seattle.
yeah, and Seattle. I wanted to say Seattle, but I wasn't sure if he was the closer there. But yeah, I've always liked Presley, Baez, Smith, and Cishek. I think that's a great 4-man group. It might come back to hurt them that they don't have a guy that's kind of the next tier up in terms of talent. For every Cishek, Smith, Baez, and Presley, you might need a Will Smith or Will Harris. Sorry, you might need a Will Harris or a Roberto Osuna. You might need a guy that's kind of the next tier up in terms of talent. They've got a lot of great, B plus relief pitchers, but they're missing that A guy. Whether it even be like an Archie Bradley, where he's just the high leverage, seventh inning, 2 outs, runners on second and third. You plug him in there, he gets that out. They're kind of missing that. Outside of those 4 relief pitchers, very, very young and very inexperienced. Blake Taylor, the lefty, Enoli Paredes, the righty, Brooks Raley, and obviously, as we mentioned, Ryan Stanek. Between those other 4 guys, 3 of them have very limited major league experience, and Ryan Stanek's kind of bounced around since his days with Tampa Bay and Miami. So it'll be interesting to see how they mix and match. Maybe they're not done. Maybe they'll go and pick up another, proven relief pitcher on a minor league deal with an invite to camp quick. Get him in, get him ready. And, I don't think this will be the bullpen that they go with into opening day.
Yeah, I think actually if this was the bullpen they stuck with on opening day, I would feel pretty good about it if I was Dusty Baker. They have proven guys in the likes of Presley, Baez, Smith, and Cishek. They have a lot of service time on their belt. They're very consistent. They have 3 guys who have closing potential. Maybe Baez could have some closing potential too if they wanted to go that route. So I actually don't feel bad about this bullpen at all. I do think Presley is going to be the closer on opening day. He was their closer last season, recorded 12 saves for them. But Smith and Cishek are just as capable of being there. And like I mentioned with Cishek, before last season, never recorded an ERA above 3.6. So this guy, he's got a weird sidearm delivery where sometimes it looks like his stuff is easy to hit, but he is capable of holding a closer's roll down. So I'm curious to see what they do. Joe Smith too. I'm curious to see how they handle him because he's like an aging wonder. He's kind of like Greinke, where he's been able to defy father time. He didn't pitch last season, but he's been able to put up some relatively consistent good numbers over his career. So he's been quietly good. He hasn't really been a guy that's like really caught your eye, but if you watch him enough, you'll see that he's actually he's a lot better than what people make him out to be.
Yeah.
And then Pedro Baez being in Houston, I'm interested to see what they do. If he's going to be an 8th inning guy, or maybe even if he competes for the closer's role. So they have a lot of options here. With Blake Taylor and Enoli Paredes, they both made their major league debuts last year, each through 22 innings, and actually they did pretty decent. Taylor recorded an ERA a little above 3. I think it was 3.05. Paredes was around 2.9, I believe, if I read those numbers correctly. And they're both ground ball pitchers as well. They're not really guys who are going to get a lot of strikeouts, but they will keep the ball in play, and they'll keep the ball in play, but keep it on the ground. So I'm excited to see kind of how that goes for them. I think they're good options to maybe go with on opening day if the Astros feel like if they're good in spring training, give them an opening day roster. And then Brooks Raley and Ryan Stanek, I think, to round it out. You're right. Stanek he hasn't really been the same pitcher that he was since he was in Tampa. He was okay with Miami, but not anything stellar by any means. So, but I do like this bullpen. I think this is probably their biggest strength right now because they have a lot of proven They have a lot of proven success with about half of these guys, and then they've got some up and coming guys coming as well. So uh, if I'm the Astros and this was what the bullpen looked like on opening day, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. Not to say that it's a bad bullpen or that I wouldn't feel confident in it. But I always love having veterans in the bullpen. So if you can add one, I always try to. Um, Looking at our prospects to watch, I really have to talk about Forrest Whitley. He's kind of been kind of a lost prospect, so to speak. He was a top draft pick back in 2016. Um, was really considered one of the potential saviors for the Astros. Was looked at as one of the five best prospects in baseball at one point. I believe it was either MLB.com or Baseball America that had him ranked as the number 5 prospect in all of baseball at one point. Um, but recently, as recently as 2019, 2018, he kind of has suffered some injuries. He only made 8 starts that season in the minor leagues. 2019, he had an ERA of 7.99 in 15
Oof.
starts, 18 total games, and that was he very briefly played with the AAA club. It was not good. I believe he had an ERA north of 10 in his 1 or 2 starts that he had. Um, He's got great strikeout numbers, and pre 2019, his numbers are great overall. ERA well under 4. I believe he had like 145 strikeouts in 80 innings one season. I believe that was 2017. So he's kind of needs to, and obviously with 2020, there was some talk about him potentially making his debut with the COVID shortened season, but he had some sort of arm issue at one point, and they shut him down from the alternate camp. So he never, he kind of lost out on 2020 as a potential debut season, but I think he needs to regain the organization's trust before he's going to debut. He's still the number 1 prospect in the organization. That's pre 2020. So, I mean, obviously, organizations haven't released their 2021 top prospect list. So everything that you see me go off of is pre 2020. But I still believe he'll be their number 1 prospect. He's number 41 overall pre 2021 for MLB.com. So he's still considered a very highly touted starting pitcher. He's only 23. Like I mentioned, he had some very brief experience in AAA. It'll be interesting to see kind of if he can regain maybe the talent that he had pre 2019. He's 6'7", so the physical side of that is definitely still there. The second prospect I want to talk about is Luis Santana. He's a second baseman. He's the number 18 prospect for the Astros. He's 21, and his highest level that he's reached is AA. He played some very brief AA there. He's a short second baseman. As you can see in the picture, he's holding his bat in a really weird way. I think he has some kind of almost Gary Sheffield-esque batting stance where he's kind of, the bat's kind of doing something like this. And I think the picture caught him with the bat kind of out in front.
Oh, that almost looks like Kevin Youkilis.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, that looks really close to Youkilis too.
But that would be cool. I'd love to see a guy with a batting stance like Youkilis again. What really stood out to me is his glove work. He's played second base. He has some limited experience at third base, but I think that if he gets more time there, he could very well be a second/third baseman. He's a 308 hitter in 210 minor league games, so the average is definitely there. I love. He's almost like a poor man's Jose Altuve, a young Altuve that is. He's 5'8". He gets on base. He's got a little bit of speed, not nearly as much as what Jose Altuve had when he was younger. He struggled briefly in his AA, but all of his numbers below AA are great. I think his batting average jumps up to like 310 or 311 when you discount his AA experience. So it'll be really interesting to see. I'm sure he'll probably start this season in AA, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how he can navigate AA pitching. Maybe he can take advantage of AA pitching and then make the jump up to AAA, or maybe injuries even force him up to the big league squad, assuming they don't like any other middle infield prospects more. The third player I want to cover is Ronnie Dawson. Now he despite the fact that he's got the size and build, he is not related to Andre Dawson. When I first saw Ronnie Dawson, I saw how he was built, his age and everything like that. I'm like, that might be is someone related to Andre Dawson, but he is not. He is the number 28 prospect for the Astros. He's an outfielder. He's played all three outfield positions relatively decently. He's 25. His highest level reach is AAA. He had a really good career in Ohio State. I believe he spent all 4 years in Ohio State. Um, he's got a potentially excellent power speed combo. And he's got 431 career minor league games under his belt. He's got 54 home runs and 79 stolen bases. And what's most important is that I believe he's got 4 years of minor league experience to this point. In each of his last three minor league seasons, he's had at least 10. He's had 10 plus stolen bases and home runs each year. So he's got a little bit of a power speed combo working. He's not going to blow the doors off of anyone. I believe he had 30 plus stolen bases one season. I believe he also had like 13 or 15 home runs that year as well. His biggest issue is that strikeouts still remain worrying. He's had 110 plus strikeouts in each of his last three seasons. That's kind of resulted in a less than ideal batting average, sitting at 245 for him. So he's struggled in limited stints with AA and AAA, but he's got a good physical size. He's 6'2", 217 pounds. So he's definitely got the physical abilities. He's got the power. He's got the speed. I think if he can lower those strikeouts a little bit, even just by 20 or 30 a season, I think it's very possible that batting average could jump up to 260, 265, and potentially net him a job in the outfield for the Astros at some point. I believe he is in the Major League Spring Camp right now. So it would be interesting to see if maybe he can net one of those extra outfield roles on the bench for them this year.
Absolutely. So my three guys I want to look at. The first one I want to take a look at is Jeremy Pena. He's number 4 in the system, number 4 in the Astros system, number 82 overall. If the Astros decide not to extend Carlos Correa, I think this is probably the guy that is in their future. Pena, highest level reach is high A. It looks like he's going to be a AA to start the year, though. In the minor leagues, 145 career games, 374 on base percentage. He has a 407 slugging percentage. He's not a big power hitter. He only has eight career home runs, 64 RBI. He does have a 290 average to his name, though. 65 walks and 109 strikeouts. He does have 23 stolen bases, so this guy has some speed. He will take his walks. He'll get on base. He's got a pretty good glove, too, so he's a pretty well-rounded player. He might not be the best replacement for a guy like Carlos Correa, but I think as far as batting goes, he'll probably be a lot more consistent, and I think he has leadoff potential in his future. And he might even be able to add power to his bat a little later on. So he's a guy to look out for. I don't expect to see him on the team this year, but I would say maybe next year in 2022, he should be looked at as a potential roster spot. The next guy I want to look at is Yairo Solis. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's the number 8. He's the number 8 prospect in the system. He's 21 years old. His highest level reach is A ball as well. Yeah, I expect to see him in AA this year too. He's actually been pretty decent, and he could make a quick jump to AAA. He might even be some pitching help for them down the line, depending on what direction the Astros go with Greinke and McCullers. This guy, I would expect, will see some major league time maybe as early as next year. He's got a 5-7 record in 28 games overall. He's made 21 starts, 3.05 career ERA, and 112 innings pitched, 120 strikeouts, 53 walks. So the walks are a little bit of a concern, but he's only allowed 4 homers, and he has a 240 average against him with a 1.37 WHIP. So he will give up hits, but he keeps the ball in the park. He's mostly a ground ball pitcher. Will give up some fly balls, but there's not a whole lot to be concerned with. I think he's really consistent. Like I said, he keeps the ball in play, which is really crucial. So he may not, and he will rack up strikeouts as well. He averages about a strikeout per inning, which is pretty decent. So this is a guy I think that could be, I think he will be part of the future for this team. I expect to see him maybe next year. at some point in the big league club. Maybe this year, depending on how he performs at the higher minor league levels. And then the last guy I want to look at, I think this guy probably this guy has a really good chance to make the opening day roster. That's Chas McCormick. He's the number 21 prospect. He's an outfielder. He's 25 years old. He's at the AAA level, much like Ronnie Dawson. He's got 281 games on his belt, 360 on base percentage, 400 slugging. Has a little bit of pop in the bat, not too much though. He's got 20 homers to his name, 143 RBI, so he will drive in the runs when given the opportunity. 276 lifetime batting average, 41 stolen bases. This number actually jumped out to me quite a bit. He does have 148 strikeouts, but he has 125 walks.
Wow.
So he has a pretty good eye at the plate, even though he only is about a 276 hitter in the minors. This guy does get on base pretty well. He might strike out, but he'll take his walks too. And he has a little speed to add as well. I think this will be a good guy to keep an eye on if you're an Astros fan. To me, of these three prospects, he is the most likely to make the opening day roster, especially with his age and him being at the AAA level. I don't think he has a lot more to prove. What his career numbers say is probably about what's going to happen at the major league level. And, considering the Astros outfield is not the strongest, McCormick seems like a good piece to have. And to me, they wouldn't be losing anything or they wouldn't be hurt by anything by adding him, especially if Yordan Alvarez proves not to be ready by opening day. This seems like a guy that would be a good fit because Michael Brantley primarily was the DH last season in Houston, and I imagine he will split time between DH and outfield. So McCormick should get some starts here and there as well, even if he has to split some time with Souza and Tucker. He should get some playing time, I would think, this year. I don't know if he's in spring camp or not. I haven't looked at the Astros spring camp roster, but this is a guy to keep an eye out on for sure. I think he will be. I think he will be on the opening day roster.
Yeah, kind of what you've listed out almost kind of gives me some potential like Aaron Hicks vibes.
Yeah.
Especially if he can prove to be a very valuable piece in the outfield as far as defensively goes. Takes his walks, he's going to strike out some, steal a couple bases, hit a couple home runs. That's literally Aaron Hicks. I mean, that's not a bad player to have.
No, not at all.
Especially off the bench. Looking at some Astros projections for 2021, I think they're definitely due for a step back. I think they're at best an 81 and 81 team. I'm still not sold on their rotation or their bullpen. They have the pieces there, but just the lack of experience for a lot of those pieces. 3 of their 5 starting pitchers have less than 2 full seasons of major league service time. So I think the likelihood of all 3 of their potential starters and half their bullpen, all of a sudden all of the 7 of them prove to be quality major league talent, I think is unlikely. So I think at best they're an 81 and 81. Springer is going to be a big loss for them. I think at worst they're a 69 and 93, and they let Correa go. They bring up some more young talent, and kind of like how a few of these other teams go. It'll be 1 or 2 years where they officially take a step back, and then they'll just be right back at it once their new talent comes up. My big 3 factors are: can Altuve, Bregman, and Correa bounce back? As I mentioned, I think Altuve and Bregman had batting averages well below 240. I believe Altuve sat at like a 212 average. I get it; it's over a 60-game season, but he just looked uninspired a lot of the times. I believe that their allegations that weighed on them all year, almost a year to the day since those allegations first really started to make their rounds. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe a year removed from those allegations, whether or not they can kind of work towards putting that to the past and kind of getting back to baseball. My second key factor is, will Alvarez get and stay healthy? If those knees prove to be fixed and it was just a one-time thing and he's back, even if he's just relegated to DH duties like he has been, it's going to be very, very important. It could be crucial. That could make them a 90-win team almost. If if they can get Altuve, Bregman, Correa, if they can get two of those guys to be what they usually are, and they can get Alvarez back in shape as well, they could very easily win that division. But if four of your nine hitters, all have, down years again, as it showed last season, you're not likely to finish over 500. And then the third one is the huge hole that's being left by Verlander and Springer, plus the couple guys they lost in the bullpen. It'll be crucial to see if the guys that they're replacing can live up to the potential that they're being kind of placed up against. If Pedro Baez can continue to be successful, I'm sure that he'll probably have a different role than what he had in Los Angeles with the Dodgers. Steve Cishek and Ryan Plesley are going to have new roles. So it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of overcome those losses that they had. Verlander has not ruled out pitching this season. He's a very driven man. I love him as a player. Love him as a person. He took this offseason to kind of just be himself, rehab himself. And while, yes, he did have Tommy John surgery late in the 2020 season, and it's likely that he's not going to pitch this year, he may very well be the type of person to force his way back to the mound. That's just kind of how he is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that a lot. I don't think he's going to let something like Tommy John stop him from returning if he can. I still think the Astros are a force to reckon with. That's why I think their ceiling is about 90 and 72. Their floor is 77 and 85. I do think Verlander and Springer are big enough losses for them, though, that this does take them somewhat a step back. Especially because this leads into my next point. There's a lot of young players making their way up. They have a young pitching staff this year. They have 4 guys who haven't really pitched full seasons. So I think that this could play a part. For me, their starting pitching is the biggest hole for them. They have a lot to prove there. So with these young guys kind of making their rounds now and actually getting full seasons to play, I'm curious to see how they handle a full 162 game slate. And then my third point, I just think the Angels and Athletics are better teams. Going into the year, on paper, they are a little better. Granted, the Astros do have a good manager in Dusty Baker, who seems to get the best out of his guys and gets the max out of his guys. So I don't think you should rule the Astros out, but I don't think they're going to be a 100-win team either. Unless if everything goes absolutely right for them and the Angels and A's fall apart. So, but I think to me, they could be a wild card. They could be a wild card team, or they could be a borderline wild card team at best. But I can also see things not going as well for them with the young talent that's going to be making their rounds.
Yeah. You could say I'm going a little hard on them there with my projections, but it's okay. Unbiased. It's unbiased. I promise. As always, you can find us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Real Dugout Talk. You can find us on TikTok at Dugout Talk. You can find us on Twitter at Dugout Talk 1. You can always find us here on YouTube at Dugout Talk, and you can also find us on Facebook at Real Dugout Talk. We appreciate you guys watching today. Tomorrow we look to round out the division with the Oakland Athletics. Looking forward to that one because I haven't really paid attention to their off-season moves outside of their really weird Chris Davis trade that they made. That's another one of those deals that I was listening to last night on the radio as I was driving around doing some errands. The Chris Davis Elvis Andrus trade was just really weird, and it's crazy to think that it flew under the radar as much as it did.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited to cover the A's too. They were always kind of, say what you want about how they do business. They're always a fun team to kind of see how they do things. So tomorrow should be good. But
absolutely,
yeah, thank you guys again for being with us. We will see you tomorrow. Stay safe, stay warm. Until then, we'll see you then.
See you guys.